Wells Cathedral is by a major spring that gave the city of Wells its name. Excavations at the Camery Gardens, the cathedral garden by the cloister, have revealed evidence from Neolithic, Iron Age and Roman periods. There was a particular lot of Roman material, and a mausoleum of this time was found, with evidence that there were Roman buildings where the cathedral now is. The cathedral is a lay centre, a meeting point of lays. One of them runs in a northwesterly direction across Warminster Slight, a place with the frequently occurring Worm name. There is a legend here of a dragon killed by Bishop Jocelyn in the 13th century. The primary schools in the area produced a mosaic about the story in 2001, which is near the moat of the Bishop's Palace, very close to where the lay crosses. It then goes through a chapel in Dulcote, now converted into a private house. There is another spring here, which is visible in a small grotto, which has been created by the roadside. The water flows out of the rocks in a waterfall and also powers a fountain nearby. The line then continues through the Bishop's Palace and goes across the cathedral adjacent to the chapter house and the information centre in the undercroft beneath it. It is one of 3 lays, all quite wide at 20 paces, and which meet at a centre under the pulpit and the choir. The famous worn steps to the chapter house. There is a statue of a woman with a dragon on these steps, which is probably St. Margaret of Antioch, one of the saints with a dragon-killing legend. The chapter house. The line then goes through the entrance to Wookey Hole Cave, a spectacular place between a hill and a cliff where it was picked up strongly, and the place was felt to be very powerful. It then goes to a tumulus on the Mendips, followed by 5 more across the plateau, and Shipham Church. Another lay through the centre, seemingly forming a St Andrew's diagonal cross over the cathedral, goes through 2 other churches in the city. It comes from a multi-junction at Horrington to St Thomas's Church, running along St Thomas's Street. St Thomas's Street to the north tower of the cathedral. It then goes through the cathedral lay centre to St Cuthbert's, the parish church of Wells, often mistaken for the cathedral. It continues through Hay Hill and the original site of Shapwick Church, moved in the 14th century, then on to Swain's Jumps, a row of small stones on the Polden Ridge, and Moorlinch and North Newton churches. An east-west equinox lay through the cathedral centre goes through a multi-junction at Wookey to Wookey Church, in a valley site next to the River Axe. There was an earlier Bishop's Palace here, in a field adjoining it. It then goes through the cathedral lay centre and onto the important site of Beacon Hill, on the Fosse Way near Shepton Mallet, touching the edge of the circular earthwork there. The tumulus there was excavated in 2009 and contained the cremated remains of a young woman aged about 18 who died about 1600 BC. They were then reburied with pagan ceremony. The line continues to Downhead Church, then a crossroads in Warminster, to Cradle Hill there, which was a centre for UFO activity in the 1960s. The lay goes through the north tower of the cathedral and the north porch, where there are some very unusual sculptures of dragons, which have dragons' bodies but human heads. The ledges all issue from the creatures' mouths, like green man fronds. The dragons bear a distinct resemblance to those on the front cover of The Spine of Albion by Gary Biltcliffe and Carolyn Hoare, representing energy currents. Various dates from 1174 to 1230 have been assigned to the porch. This is the time of Bishop Jocelyn, a local man and also one of the bishops with King John at Runnymede when he sealed the Magna Carta. The cathedral's spectacular west front was built in his time. His crozier, depicting St. Michael spearing a dragon, is on display in the cathedral library. A note added to Higden's Polychronicon describes the legend that he killed a dragon in his park near Wells. Four-legged, winged, and with a face like a man's, it was said to have been deadly, but Jocelyn, dismissing his followers, attacked it single-handed and cut off its head. This version of Polychronicon is now in Eton College Library. A geophysics resistivity scan was done on the Cathedral Green in 2014. Ground resistance is higher where there are stones, giving a lighter tone, and lower where there is deep soil. Several archaeologists had suggested that there may be a Roman road crossing the green, and the geophysics revealed a lighter linear feature pointing to the North Tower and aligning with St Andrew's Street and St Thomas's Street. In other words, aligned with the St Cuthbert's Lay. The road dowses at 6 paces and the lay 10. In addition to this, there is a circular feature on the plan, composed of spots of high resistivity stones. Could it be a buried stone circle on the cathedral green? Vicars Close, Wells, is the oldest inhabited street in England. It was built in the 14th century for the vicars choral, men of the choir of the cathedral, under a charter from King Edward III. At the end of it is the Vicar's Chapel, a rather unusual church that is rather like a chancel without a nave. The alignment of the street points at the lay centre in the cathedral and at the Bishop's Chapel in the Bishop's Palace grounds. The Bishop's Chapel. Coming northwards, the lay goes through North Wootton Church, built in the 12th century. This village was one of those associated with the Warminster Slight dragon legend and has a dragon barn. In the direction beyond the Vicar's Chapel, the line goes up into the Mendips and a tumulus at Priddy, before running along the East Water Lane, which could be the Lord's Path there, associated with the legends of Jesus visiting the village when in Britain as a teenager. See the video Jesus and Uxella for more on this. There is a standing stone with 2 holes pierced through it on the lawn outside Wells Museum. It's currently on the Warminster Slight Lay through the cathedral, but originally it was on 2 other lays on Tor Hill, Wells. The presence of iron fixings led to the idea that it was just a gatepost, but Barry Lane, curator of the museum, thinks it's likely to be prehistoric. In 1949, the curator Herbert Bauch had it removed from Tor Hill to its present place. On the hill, its large hole provided a view of Pen Hill, where there is a Neolithic long barrow. The small hole faced northwest, in the direction of another long barrow, west of Priddy. The large hole lay crosses the St Michael line at a crossroads at North Wootton, then passes through the stone site on Tor Hill and crosses the cathedral axis lay at Knapp Hill. It then goes to the Long Barrow on Pen Hill, then to Pagan's Hill, Chew Stoke, where there was a Romano-British temple. The small hole lay, pointing northwest, crosses the St Michael line at Knowle Hill, suggestive of a mound previously. Then it goes to the Church of St Michael and All Angels, Dinder, before arriving at the stone site. After this it goes through a pine clump at Stowbury Park and a cairn north of Ebor Gorge, the Long Barrow west of Priddy and a moat at Nye. Andrew May has found that sacred sites in the West Country seem to map the constellation of Aquarius. Alpha Aquarii is Wells Cathedral, and there is also Warminster and Stonehenge. Wirial Hill, Glastonbury. Ilchester, the Roman Lyndinis. Ilminster, the minster is modelled on Wells Cathedral. Pilsdon Pen, the highest point in Dorset, Iron Age hill fort. The Cerne Abbas Giant, and Whitchurch Canonicorum, a pilgrimage site.